After I got pulled into the horror game, my nearsightedness made everything blurry. I ended up treating the creepy girl in the bloodstained dress like my own daughter, the final boss like my husband, and the old creepy ghosts like my loving parents. First time I met the boss, I grabbed his ABS and said, "Nice body. Shame, you're kinda short." He actually laughed in anger, picked up the severed head in his hand, put it back on his neck, and ground out, "I'm 6'1". Still think I'm short. Now, welcome to the happy home scenario. Survive for 7 days to clear the game. Initial players, 30. Current survivors, 30. We wish all players an enjoyable experience. After dying in a car crash, a flash of white light brought me to a tall building. A strange mechanical voice echoed in my ears. Because I'm extremely nearsighted, everything beyond 3 meters is a blur. I couldn't make out the building's details, or the faces of the people around me, just vague human shapes. Somewhere nearby, a timid girl started crying. "Where are we? I want to go home." A guy with yellow-dyed hair shouted impatiently, "What the hell is this? Let me out." Then a man and a woman stepped forward, looking calmer than the rest, introduced themselves as veteran players Elaine and Jethro, and kindly explained what was going on. We were inside an infinite horror game. Everyone here was already dead. If we could survive every scenario and collect the legendary 9,099 points, we'd be revived. The moment I heard revive, I jumped in. "So how many points do we get for finishing one round?" Elaine sighed softly. "It depends on your fear value. If your score hits 99, you only earn 1 point. If it reaches 100, you die." As the name suggests, the fear value measures how scared you get. Experienced players usually manage to keep it under 60. Newbies like us, though, usually don't get that lucky. I rubbed my chin and asked, "Then what if someone clears it with 0 fear value? Would that mean 100 points?" The moment those words left my mouth, my entire feed was broadcast to a live audience. The chat instantly lit up with mocking comments. "Rookie's full of herself. Happy Home might only be an S-rank scenario, but it's so twisted, no one's ever beaten it. Didn't the top player from the #1 guild die here? He made it to day 6 before getting wiped out. They're screwed. Only 2 veterans this time, Elaine and Jethro. And even together, they're not half as good as that guy. Total party wipe incoming." Before long, it was time to choose rooms. Elaine explained that while no one had ever cleared this scenario, past players had figured out a few things. Building had 30 floors, 1 apartment per floor, and only 1 player could stay in each. Happy Home, she continued, was actually a role-playing horror scenario. Each apartment house, strange entities that would act as your family or loved ones. So 7 days of living together with them. There was no way your fear value wouldn't spike. Before she could finish, Jethro grabbed her hand and quickly chose the 1st and 2nd floors. Seeing that the rest of the players caught on fast, everyone scrambled to claim the lowest floors. Because I couldn't see clearly, I couldn't outrun anyone, so I had to wait until everyone else picked their rooms. In the end, only the 30th floor was left for me. Since I was practically blind, the live chat went off again. "She's so dead." Everyone knows the higher the floor, the stronger the boss, especially the 30th floor. It's all top-level bosses. They call it the House of Death. When I reached the 30th floor, I looked around. Honestly, it didn't seem that different from a normal apartment. The only differences were the stronger smell of blood, the red walls, the cold air, and the dim lights. Besides, it was a huge apartment, and supposedly, the family I'd always dreamed of having was waiting inside. You have to understand, in real life, I'm not only severely nearsighted, but also an orphan and broke. On top of that, I walked straight to the door, raised my hand, banged on it hard, and yelled, "Open up, baby, I'm home. If you don't open the door, I'm gonna starve to death out here." The live chat exploded. "Be trying to die." Every other player either knocks politely or just waits outside until the ghost in a good mood. I'm done watching this brainless idiot switching to a lame stream. No, keep watching. I want to see how she dies. But they just didn't get how my brain works. If this was a role-playing scenario and the goal was to live as family, then the key was to act natural. Who on earth comes home and politely knocks saying, "Excuse me, is anyone home? Could you please open the door?" After a moment, the door creaked open. A chill swept over me, and I let out a relaxed sigh. Wow, free air conditioning, perfect for summer. When I looked down, I saw a small red figure. Even with my blurry vision, I could make out 2 swaying pigtails. It looked like a little girl in a red dress. She grinned eerily and suddenly lunged at me, her icy hands clamping around my neck. I instinctively pulled her into my arms. Feeling the damp fabric of her dress, I scolded, "You can't wear wet clothes, sweetheart. Take it off. I'll find you something dry." Then I caught a whiff of something metallic and frowned. "Wait, are you bleeding? Where's the first aid kit? I'll patch you up." The live chat was losing its mind, frustrated beyond belief. "Lady, open your damn eyes. That's one of the bosses from the House of Death. That wet red dress isn't wet. It's soaked in the blood of her victims. And that smell of blood, it's not because she's hurt. It's because her dress is covered in pieces of the player she's killed. Just wait till the other one gets home. She's a goner for sure." Unfortunately, I couldn't see any of that. While holding the little girl in my arms, I walked into the apartment and gently took off her red dress from her pretty, pink princess room. I found a clean white one and helped her put it on. The small icy hands gripping my neck slowly loosened. Sensing her confusion, I picked up a warm towel, leaned closer, and carefully wiped the blood off her face. Only then did I see her clearly. A sweet little girl, maybe 6 or 7, with big eyes and soft cheeks smiling. I pointed at my cheek. "Family's supposed to help each other out, right? But shouldn't you give me a kiss to say thanks?" The little girl fidgeted with the hem of her white dress, hesitated for a moment, then shyly leaned forward and planted a quick kiss on my face, with a soft smack before darting back. Her voice was soft and sweet as she whispered, "Thank you, Mommy." Huh? Mommy became a mom just like that. Holy crap. This is insane. You have to understand, in real life, I've heard way too many horror stories about women dying during childbirth. I've always dreamed of having a family, sure, but giving birth, that's my biggest fear. After coaxing the little girl to take a nap, a mechanical voice suddenly echoed in my ear. "And initial players, 30 current survivors. 20, what? 10 people were already dead just from choosing rooms." I grabbed my phone, held it right up to my face, and barely managed to make out the text on the screen. It was the player chat group, where everyone was frantically sharing what they'd learned, mainly how people had died. Apparently, the hot-tempered, blonde guy and 3 others fought over the 3rd floor. The blonde guy barely won and moved in. But the moment he knocked on the door, a creature with a human body and a dog's head stepped out. Its jaws split open, revealing rows of bloody teeth, and it swallowed him whole. A few seconds later, it chewed noisily and spat out a few white bones, still clinging to bits of flesh. Through the half-open door, the other players saw piles of bones inside. They guessed those must have been the remains of past victims. Witnessing that, everyone's adrenaline spiked. By now, aside from Elaine and Jethro, every new player's fear value had already hit 50. And it was only the first day. One middle-aged man died. The instant he stepped into the 10th floor, his fear value shot straight to 100. Others were dropping in all kinds of ways. Scared to death, ripped apart, or just losing it from sheer terror. Of course, none of that had anything to do with me. My little girl slept. I grabbed a mop from the bathroom and got to work. I scrubbed the place from top to bottom. The blood-red floor tiles. I managed to scrub them until they were almost white. Pretty impressive if I do say so myself. The dried red stains on the walls wouldn't come off. So I picked up a scraper and started chipping away at them instead. By the time I finished, it was already afternoon. My back was killing me, so I collapsed onto the couch beside the little girl and fell into a deep sleep. When I woke again, a chill had crept through the air. The room was dark. Standing in front of me was a shadowy figure, its outline barely visible, even though I couldn't see his face clearly. The moment he spoke, that deep, magnetic voice made my heart skip a beat. He laughed in a low, sexy voice. "Huh? Interesting you actually survived this long in Lily's hands." Then Lily's cold voice piped up. "You better not touch her. This mommy looks fun. I want to keep her to play with." The man didn't answer. He waved one big hand and sent Lily flying off the sofa. She slammed into the balcony glass with a crash, and there was the sickening sound of bones breaking. He sneered. "Who gave you permission to speak to me like that? You really think you're my daughter?" I couldn't take it. I scrambled up off the couch muttering, "Who let you talk to a kid like that? What kind of father are you?" I meant to slap him across the face, but my hand slipped and landed on his ABS instead. Damn, that felt good. I couldn't help touching them a couple more times. Seeing him on the verge of a furious explosion, black energy crawling off him, I quickly tried to make amends. "Lily's my little sweetheart, and you're my big one. We're one happy family now." I gave him my best, actually. Honey, you've got a great body, but why do you look kinda short? Don't worry though. Now that I'm here, I'll cook for you both every day. Soon you and our daughter will be tall and strong." The live chat went absolutely wild. What the hell? is she saying? How does she dare talk like that? To the headless boss. Finally, the infamous headless boss. He's supposed to be the strongest one in the happy home scenario. The top player last time died fighting him. Wait. Why does the boss look like he's blushing? No way. Did she just fluster him? You're down, bad man. Everyone in the stream was waiting for him to snap my neck, like he'd done to every other player before. But instead, he calmly lifted the severed head he'd been holding and placed it back onto his neck. Then he leaned in his cold, dangerous aura fading a little, his voice suddenly carrying a hint of wounded pride. Short, I'm 6'1". Why don't you take a closer look? Even ghosts, it seems, care about their height. Nina, he said, suddenly, my name rolling off his tongue in a deep, velvety tone that made my heart race. I grabbed his tie and yanked him down until he was practically on top of me, murmuring dramatically, can't see.
Come closer.
His handsome face came into sharp focus, and I couldn't help grinning inside. Thank God this game only tracks fear value, not heart rate. Otherwise, I'd be dead already. When he stayed silent, I panicked.
King.
I made him mad. My eyes sparkled as I rushed to flatter him. Wow, you're 6'1". I'm 5'5". That's the perfect height difference. We're meant to be. The man in the tailored suit turned bright red and was just about to respond when Lily, freshly reassembled, charged in. She kicked him so hard he flew into the ceiling and got stuck there. Then she turned to me with her big, teary eyes, pressed her face against mine, and whispered softly, Mommy, Lily, hungry food. Vincent, as the headless boss of the 30th floor was known to the upper echelons of the infinite horror game, slowly peeled himself out of the ceiling plaster. He landed on his feet with a soft, muted thud, his perfectly tailored suit miraculously free of dust. He adjusted his collar, his expression a mixture of profound irritation and deeply suppressed embarrassment. Mommy, I'm starving, Lily whimpered, her tiny, ice-cold hands tugging at the hem of Nina's shirt. Her big, hollow eyes, usually dripping with dark, viscous blood, had been wiped clean by Nina's warm towel, leaving them looking merely like those of a slightly pale, intensely dramatic child. Of course you are, sweetheart. Growing girls need their nutrition, Nina said, patting Lily's head. Her vision was so poor that the dark, writhing shadows radiating from the girl's shoulders looked like nothing more than a fuzzy, adorable winter scarf. Let's see what your father left in the fridge. Nina walked into the kitchen, humming a cheerful tune. She opened the
refrigerator door.
In the live chat, the viewer count was climbing exponentially. The stream's title had been algorithmically changed to, warning, 30th floor, House of Death. Instant death speedrun. Viewer_404. Oh God, she's opening the fridge. Ghost Hunter 99, the 30th floor. Fridge is literally a portal to the abyss. The last guy who opened it was dragged in by the decaying hand of torment. Lover of gore, here it comes. The jump scare is going to spike her fear value to 100 instantly. Nina squinted into the dark, chilly depths of the refrigerator. To her extremely nearsighted eyes, the contents were a bit of a jumble, but she could make out shapes. Oh, honey, Nina called out, looking back toward the living room where Vincent was standing, stiff as a board, still processing the fact that a mortal had grabbed his abdominal muscles and called him short. You really shouldn't leave the groceries unpackaged like this. It's highly unsanitary. She reached inside. Her hand brushed past a pair of pale, twitching fingers that tried to claw at her wrist. Feeling the cold, rubbery texture, Nina frowned. These baby carrots are incredibly fresh. They're practically bursting with moisture, she muttered. She grabbed the handful of twitching fingers, ignoring the faint, muffled screams coming from the back of the shelf, and pulled them
out.
Next, she spotted a large, dark, undulating mass that was dripping a thick, purple-black fluid, and a lovely piece of wild octopus. We can make a nice seafood stir-fry. In reality, she was holding a handful of severed ghoul fingers and the still beating heart of a mutated swamp demon. Vincent stepped into the kitchen, his dark aura flaring, his head, securely attached to his neck for the moment, tilted. He expected her to scream. He expected her to drop the cursed flesh, to realize the true nature of her family, and to suffer the delicious, intoxicating despair that all players eventually succumb to. Instead, Nina grabbed a cutting board, a large chef's knife, and began to wash the octopus under the tap. Honey, can you pass me the salt? She asked, not looking up. The kitchen is a
Bit dim.
I really think we should change the bulbs tomorrow. It's a safety hazard. Vincent stared at her back. His hand slowly drifted toward his neck, as if tempted to pull his head off again, just to see if it would get a reaction.
But
Something about her casual, domestic demand stopped him. The sheer absurdity of being asked to pass the salt in his own domain of slaughter struck him dumb. He reached out, his long, pale fingers wrapping around a jar labeled Ashes of the Damned. He slid it across the counter. Here, he muttered, his voice like dry autumn leaves scraping against a tombstone. Thanks, sweetie, Nina said. She didn't look at the label. She opened the jar, took a pinch of the fine, gray powder, and sprinkled it generously over the chopped octopus and carrots. The moment the ashes of the damned touched the cursed ingredients, a strange reaction occurred. Nina's absolute lack of fear, a pure, untainted state of mind that was mathematically impossible in S-rank scenarios, acted as a purifying catalyst. The dark, necrotic energy of the ingredients didn't corrupt her. Instead, her domestic, loving intent purified them. The purple-black slime turned into a rich, aromatic wine glaze. The severed fingers plumped up, smelling exactly like high-grade, garlic-marinated sausages. The savory aroma of a perfectly executed gourmet meal began to waft through the apartment. Lily slipped into the kitchen, sniffing the air. Her mouth watered, but for the first time in her existence, she wasn't craving human flesh. She was craving
dinner.
Sit at the table, you two, Nina commanded gently, placing the sizzling pan
Down.
Dinner is served. System announcement. Floor 30 player Nina has cooked an S-rank cursed feast. Fear value, 0%. Current survivors, 20. Live stream chat. What the heck? Wait, she cooked the S-rank boss's trophies? And made it look delicious. Pro player _X. Is the game glitched? Why is the headless boss sitting at the dining table with a napkin tucked into his collar? Scream Queen, look at his
Face.
He looks so confused, but he's actually picking up a fork. Vincent picked up a piece of the purified demon heart. He placed it in his
Mouth.
For 1,000 years, he had tasted nothing but the bitter, metallic tang of blood and the ash of despair. But as the meat melted on his tongue, a burst of savory garlic, sweet wine, and a hint of smoky spice exploded across his palate. It was warm. It was comforting. He paused. His dark eyes locked onto Nina, who was busy cutting up the sausages into bite-sized pieces for Lily. Is it good, honey? Nina asked, smiling warmly at him. I know it's a bit simple, but tomorrow I'll make a proper feast. Vincent swallowed. He cleared his throat, his expression returning to its cold, aloof mask, though a faint, dark blush dusted his high cheekbones. It is acceptable, he said stiffly. Beside him, Lily was stuffing her face, her cheeks bulging. Mommy is the best. Mommy, can we keep her forever? Can we please not tear her limbs off? Nina laughed, completely mishearing the last part. Of course we can keep playing, sweetheart. We have a whole week together. By the morning of day 2, the player count had dropped again. System announcement. Initial players, 30. Current survivors, 14. We wish all players an enjoyable experience. Nina woke up early. The bed on the 30th floor was incredibly comfortable, though. The sheets had a slight dampness to them that smelled faintly of copper. Must be the humidity, Nina muttered, stretching. She put on her glasses, which did absolutely nothing to resolve the blur beyond her fingertips, and walked into the living room. The apartment was quiet. Lily was still asleep in her princess room, but Vincent was standing by the window, staring out into the red, smog-filled sky of the horror realm. He wore his tailored black suit, looking every bit the brooding, aristocratic nightmare. Good morning, honey, Nina said, walking over and wrapping her arms around his waist from behind. Vincent stiffened. The dark, razor-sharp shadow tendrils that usually whipped out to shred anyone who dared touch him flinched, curling inward like embarrassed cats. You are awake, he said, his voice low.
Yes.
And we have a lot of work to do today, Nina said cheerfully, letting go of him and tying her hair back. The floor is still a bit sticky, and look at these walls. I tried scraping them yesterday, but we really need a fresh coat of
Paint.
A happy home needs to be bright and clean. She patted his arm. Since you're so tall, you can handle the high spots.
I'll
make breakfast. Oh, and the trash needs to be taken out. Vincent stared at her. He, the lord of the 30th floor, the nightmare that had slaughtered entire guilds of veteran players, was being told to take out the
Trash.
He looked toward the corner of the room, where a large, heavy black trash bag
sat.
It contained the leftover bones and cursed armor of the top player from the
No.
one guild who had failed the scenario last month. The bag was currently whispering curses and trying to crawl toward the door. The trash, Vincent repeated, his voice dangerously flat. Yes, dear. It's starting to smell a bit like old meat, Nina said from the
Kitchen.
Don't just stand there. Chop chop. Vincent's jaw tightened. He walked over to the bag, which immediately ceased its whispering and began to tremble in terror. He picked it up with one hand, his grip so tight the plastic nearly melted under his dark energy. Live stream chat, horror fanatic, and OA. The S-rank boss is taking out the garbage. I repeat, the boss is taking out the trash.
Guldiad_yam, my
predecessor's remains are in that bag, and they're being disposed of like household waste. I don't know whether to laugh or cry. Salty dog. Is this a horror game or a house husband simulator? As Vincent walked down the hallway to the garbage chute, he ran into a minor entity, a skinless ghoul from the 29th floor who had crawled up to see if there were any leftover scraps from the House of Death. The ghoul, seeing Vincent, immediately threw itself to the floor, trembling.
My lord.
I apologize for my intrusion. I was merely quiet, Vincent hissed, adjusting the trash bag. If you disturb my wife's mourning, I will flay your soul into 1,000 ribbons. The ghoul's jaw dropped. Wife. Since when did the headless boss have a wife? Why, yes, my lord. Right away, the ghoul squeaked, scrambling back down the stairs at lightning speed. When Vincent returned to the apartment, the scent of fresh coffee and toasted bread filled the air. Nina had somehow found a bag of dark roast beans. Actually cursed coffee beans grown in the volcanic ash of the underworld, and
ground them down.
Here you go, honey, Nina said, placing a cup of pitch-black, steaming liquid in front of him. Vincent took a sip. The bitter, smoky flavor was incredibly intense, sending a jolt of pure energy through his undead veins. It was, without a doubt, the best thing he had ever tasted. We need to go shopping today, Nina said, sitting down with her own cup. Lily needs some new toys, and we need some household supplies. Is there a supermarket nearby? Vincent paused. There is, the Twilight Bazaar. Perfect. We'll make a family trip out of it. The Twilight Bazaar was a place of absolute terror for any normal player.
It was.
Where high-level entities traded cursed artifacts, bottled screams, and fresh human organs. Elaine and Jethro, the two veteran players who had barely survived to day 2 on the lower floors, were currently hiding behind a stack of rusted cages in the
bazaar.
They had been forced to come here to find a specific quest item, a soul-binding key, to unlock their respective apartments for the next night. Keep your head down, Jethro, Elaine whispered, her face pale. If the merchant spots us, we'll have to trade our own lifespans to get out. Jethro nodded, his fear value hovering at a dangerous 58%. I know, but look, over there is that. Elaine squinted through the dim, red haze of the market. Walking down the center aisle, completely unbothered by the grotesque sights, was a young woman in a simple knit sweater and jeans. She was holding the hand of a little girl in a pristine white dress. Walking a step behind them was a tall, imposing man in a tailored black suit, carrying a pink, woven shopping basket. Mommy, look. Balloons. Lily squealed, pointing at a stand where a merchant was selling floating, inflated human bladders painted with creepy faces. Oh, how festive, Nina said, her blurry vision transforming the grotesque bladders into adorable helium balloons. She walked up to the merchant, a terrifying 3-eyed demon with horns. Excuse me, sir.
How much for the red?
1. The merchant snarled, his 3 eyes flashing with malice. A human soul, girl. Or perhaps your left eye. Before the merchant could finish a sentence, Vincent stepped up behind Nina. The temperature in the market plummeted. A crushing, suffocating pressure radiated from him, so intense that the stone floor beneath their feet began to crack. Vincent's gaze locked onto the merchant, a silent promise of absolute annihilation. The merchant's horns visibly wilted. He broke into a cold, black sweat. Is what I would say if I were a greedy monster, the merchant squeaked, his voice cracking. But for a beautiful lady like you, it's completely free. In fact, take 3. On the house. Oh, aren't you sweet? Nina said, taking the balloons and handing one to Lily. See, Lily? The local shopkeepers are so friendly. You must always say, thank you. Thank you, scary balloon man, Lily said, giving the merchant a sweet, terrifyingly sharp-toothed smile. The merchant nodded frantically, nearly taking his own head off in his haste to
Bow.
Elaine and Jethro watched this entire exchange from their hiding spot, their mouths hanging open. Is that the girl from the 30th floor? Jethro whispered, his voice trembling. The one everyone in the chat said was a brainless idiot? She just coerced an S-rank merchant into giving her free cursed items. Elaine said, her own fear value dropping slightly out of sheer, unadulterated
Shock.
And who is that man behind her? The energy coming off him, it's stronger than any boss I've ever seen. That's the headless boss, Jethro whispered, checking his player guide on his phone. The final boss of the entire scenario. He's carrying a pink shopping basket. As Nina walked past their hiding spot, she paused. Her blurry vision caught two vague human shapes huddled behind the cages. Oh, hello there, Nina called out, waving. Are you two also out doing some shopping? It's a lovely day, isn't it? Elaine and Jethro froze. They looked at Nina, then at Vincent, who was staring down at them with eyes that promised a slow, agonizing death if they said the wrong thing. Lovely day. Elaine squeaked, her voice octave shifting. Just buying some bread. Wonderful. Have a great day. Nina smiled, turning back to Vincent. Honey, let's get some of those fresh vegetables over there. As the three of them walked away, Jethro slumped against the cages, his heart hammering. We're going to live, Elaine. We're going to live because the final boss is on a grocery run. Live stream chat. Big brain, I can't believe my eyes. She is literally treating the S-rank horror zone like a local farmer's market. Fearless underscore. And it's working. Look at her fear value. It's still at 0%.
System.
Announcement. Current survivors, 10. Day 3 has officially begun. By day 4, the atmosphere in the 30th floor apartment had shifted completely. The red walls had been covered with a warm, beige wallpaper that Nina had bought at the bazaar, which she thought was just a very high-quality vinyl, but was actually the cured hide of a mythical beast. The sticky blood on the floor was gone, replaced by clean, polished wood. The apartment actually looked like a home. But day 5 brought a new challenge. Knock, knock, knock. The knocks on the door were slow, heavy, and resonated with an ancient, decaying power. The temperature in the room dropped so fast that frost began to form on the windows. Vincent, who was sitting on the couch reading a cursed tome, froze. His expression darkened. They are here, he murmured. Who is it, honey? Nina asked, coming out of the kitchen with a plate of freshly baked cookies, made from purified soulflower and sweet red berries. My parents, Vincent said, his voice laced with a rare hint of tension. The parents of the headless boss were two of the oldest, most horrific entities in the entire game lore. They were the original rulers of the House of Death, ancient spirits of malice and decay who hated mortals with a passion. They had only come because they heard rumors that their son had taken a mortal wife and was acting like a domesticated house husband. Nina's eyes lit up.
Oh.
Your parents. Why didn't you tell me they were coming? I would have prepared a proper dinner. She rushed to the door and threw it open. Standing in the doorway were two towering, skeletal figures wrapped in tattered black robes. Their faces were hollow skulls radiating a cold, blue fire, and their hands were long, bony claws dripping with frost. Mortal. The father ghost hissed, his voice echoing like a gust of wind through a graveyard. You dare pollute this sacred domain of... Oh, Mom.
Dad.
It is so wonderful to finally meet you, Nina cried, stepping forward and throwing her arms around the father ghost's skeletal neck. The ancient spirit of decay froze. The blue fire in his eyes flickered wildly in sheer confusion. No mortal had ever touched him without their flesh rotting off instantly. But Nina's absolute lack of fear, combined with her warm, genuine embrace, acted as a shield. The rot couldn't touch her. You must be freezing, Nina said, letting go and grabbing the mother ghost's icy hands. Look at your hands, they're like ice.
Gomein.
I just made some hot tea and cookies. She ushered the two ancient, terrifying deities into the living room as if they were just a couple of sweet, frail grandparents who had traveled too far in the winter cold. Vincent stood up, his hand resting on the hilt of his dark energy blade, ready to defend Nina if his parents attacked. But as he looked at his father, the ancient lord of decay was currently staring at his own hands, utterly bewildered as to why this mortal woman hadn't dissolved into a puddle of ash. "Sit down, please," Nina said, guiding them to the sofa. She placed a tray of tea and cookies in front of them. "I'm sorry the place is a bit of a mess. Vincent has been helping me clean, but we still have a lot of work to do." The mother ghost, her skeletal jaw creaking, looked at Vincent. "You help her clean?" Vincent looked away, his cheekbones flushing slightly. "It keeps the dust
Down.
The father ghost picked up a cookie.
He stared at it, then at Nina, who was
Smiling warmly at him, her thick glasses reflecting the dim light. He placed the cookie in his mouth. The moment the purified soulflower and sweet berries touched his tongue, the ancient, bitter curse that had bound his soul to eternal hunger for 1,000 years suddenly softened. A wave of warmth spread through his skeletal frame. The blue fire in his eyes softened to a gentle, warm amber. "This," the father ghost murmured, his voice no longer terrifying but sounding like a tired old man. "This is very good." "I'm so glad you like it." Nina beamed. "Vincent told me you both enjoy quiet afternoons, so I made some special herbal tea to help with your joints.
I
Noticed you were walking a bit stiffly when you came in." She brought over a basin of steaming water.
Here, Dad.
A nice, warm foot bath. It has Epsom salts and lavender. It'll do wonders for your circulation." The ancient lord of decay, who had spent the last millennium drowning his enemies in rivers of blood, slowly lowered his skeletal feet into the warm, lavender-scented water. He let out a long, shuddering sigh of pure, unadulterated bliss. "Wife," the father ghost said, looking at the mother ghost, "our son has found a very good woman." The mother ghost, who had been highly skeptical, took a sip of the tea. Her skeletal shoulders relaxed. She looked at Nina, her cold, bony hand gently resting over Nina's. "You take good care of him," she whispered. "He was always a difficult
Child.
especially after he lost his head." "Oh, don't worry, Mom," Nina said, patting her hand. "He's a wonderful husband. A bit quiet, but he's very sweet once you get to know him." Vincent sat nearby, his head resting in his hand, his face completely red.
Lily
Was sitting on his lap, happily munching on a cookie, enjoying the rare peace in their family. Live stream chat. "No way, I'm calling the developers. This is illegal."
She
Just tamed the 2 oldest bosses in the game with a foot bath and lavender tea. Crying inside. "My fear value just went down by watching this. Is this a healing?"
Anim.
S-rank_veteran. "I've been playing this game for 3 years.
I have
Never seen the Lord of Decay smile. I didn't even know his skull could smile." By day 6, only 5 players remained in the entire scenario. Elaine, Jethro, and 3 other lucky newbies who had stayed on the lowest floors and followed the live stream instructions to keep their fear values low by doing light chores and avoiding conflict. But the game system was not happy. The S-rank Happy Home scenario was designed to be a meat grinder. It was meant to break the spirits of players, to harvest their fear and despair to power the game engine. A player clearing the 30th floor with a 0% fear value, while turning the ultimate bosses into a cozy, loving family, was a massive anomaly. It was a virus in the system. At midnight, a harsh, red mechanical text flashed across the sky, visible to all remaining players. "Alert! System anomaly detected on floor 30. Fear value remains at 0%. Initiating emergency purge protocol. The Grand Purge. Difficulty raised to SS rank. The Happy Home scenario rules are suspended. All entities are ordered to slaughter the anomaly. Non-compliant entities will be deleted." The apartment shook violently. The beautiful wallpaper Nina had put up began to peel, revealing the bleeding, screaming faces of the walls beneath. The warm, cozy lights flickered and died, replaced by a harsh, cold, crimson glare. In the living room, Vincent stood up, his dark aura erupting like a volcano.
his
Tailored suit was replaced by his true form, a towering armor of black steel and shadows, his severed head floating above his neck, surrounded by a halo of dark, crackling energy. Beside him, Lily's white dress turned back into the blood-soaked red gown, her jaw splitting open to reveal rows of razor-sharp teeth. But they weren't looking at Nina with malice. They were looking at the ceiling, where a massive, swirling vortex of red code and mechanical eyes was descending. The system was directly invading the 30th floor to delete Nina. "Mommy," Lily whimpered, her voice split into a dozen terrifying, echoing tones, though her eyes were still filled with fear. Not of Nina, But for Nina, the bad voice is here. It wants to take you away. Vincent stepped in front of Nina, his dark blade drawing a line of pure void in
The air.
Nina, stand back. The system has recognized you as a threat. I will hold them off, but you must run. Nina, however, was squinting at the swirling vortex of red code and mechanical
Eyes.
To her extremely nearsighted vision, it looked like a very large, very dusty, and highly annoying ventilation leak that was blowing dirt all over her clean living room. Oh, for heaven's sake, Nina huffed, putting her hands on her hips. We just clean this place. Look at all this dust. And what is that loud, grating noise? It's midnight. People are trying to sleep. She walked right past Vincent, ignoring his protests, and grabbed the mop she had used to clean the floors. Nina, no. That is the system's will. Vincent cried out, trying to grab her. But he was suddenly hit by a beam of red deletion code from the vortex, forcing him to block with his blade, his armor sparking violently. I don't care if it's the landlord or the HOA. Nina yelled, marching toward the center of the room. She looked up at the giant, terrifying mechanical eye of the system, which was currently charging a death beam. You have no manners.
Coming.
Into our home, breaking our wallpaper and making our daughter cry. She raised the mop. In the live chat, millions of viewers held their breath. Live stream chat, end of the line, she's going to fight the system with a mop. Hopeful. Please, God, let her win. I've never wanted a player to survive so badly. Gamer legend. If she clears this, she's not just a player.
She's a god.
The system's mechanical eye locked onto Nina. Target, Nina. Threat level low. Fear value, 0%. Initiating deletion. As the red beam fired, Nina didn't flinch. Her fear value remained a rock-solid, absolute 0%. Because her fear value was 0, the S-rank scenario's core logic, which dictated that a player's damage taken was multiplied by their fear value, completely broke
down.
A fear value of 0% meant she had 100% damage immunity to the horror elements. The red beam of deletion hit Nina's mop. Instead of vaporizing her, the pure, fearless intent of her domestic rage purified the energy. The red beam turned into a soft, glowing stream of warm, soapy water.
Splat.
Nina brought the wet, soapy mop head down directly onto the giant mechanical eye of the system.
Bad.
Boy. Nina scolded, as if she were swatting a naughty puppy with a rolled-up newspaper. No spilling red paint on my clean floor. No making loud noises. Go back to where you came from. The soapy water, infused with Nina's absolute lack of fear, seeped into the mechanical eye. The S-rank programming of the system began to glitch. The red code turned into a harmless, pastel blue. Error. Player fear value, 0%. Damage calculation.
Divide by arrow.
Error. System logic compromised. Anomaly has purified the purge. Protocol. Initiating emergency system reboot. With a pathetic, sputtering pop, the massive vortex of red code and mechanical eyes vanished, leaving behind only a faint scent of lavender soap and clean linen. The room fell silent. The blood-red walls settled back into the cozy, beige wallpaper. The harsh, crimson light vanished, replaced by the soft, warm glow of the living room. Lamps. Vincent's black steel armor vanished, returning him to his tailored suit. His head floated back down, settling gently onto his neck. He stared at Nina, his mouth slightly open, utterly speechless. Lily ran forward and wrapped her arms around Nina's leg. Mommy is so strong. Mommy beat up the scary sky eye. Nina sighed, leaning on her mop and wiping her brow. Honestly, some people have no respect for municipal noise ordinances. Are you two okay? Vincent walked over, his dark, dangerous aura completely replaced by a look of profound, unconditional devotion. He reached out his cool fingers gently, cupping her cheek, his thumb brushing over her temple. Yes, Nina, he murmured, his deep voice filled with a warmth he hadn't possessed in 1,000 years. We are perfectly fine, thanks to you. On the morning of day 7, the mechanical voice echoed in the ears of the remaining 5 players. It sounded remarkably tired, almost defeated. System announcement. Day 7 complete. Scenario, happy home cleared. Survivors, 5. Survival rate, 16.6%. Calculating rewards. Player Elaine. Fear value 52%. Reward, 10 points. Player Jethro. Fear value 55%. Reward: 8 points. Player Nina. Fear value 0%. Reward: 10,000 points. Special title. Awarded: the beloved mother of the abyss. In the white lobby of the infinite game, Elaine and Jethro materialized, their bodies intact, their hearts pounding with the joy of survival. "We made it," Jethro gasped, falling to his knees. "We actually made it. It was all because of her," Elaine said, looking at the giant holographic leaderboard in the center of the lobby. At the very top, in golden letters, was the name, Nina, 10,000 points. To revive a human being from the real world, the game required exactly 9,999
Points.
Nina had cleared the S-rank scenario with 0% fear, securing the legendary 10,000 point reward in a single run. But as the players watched, Nina didn't choose the revive and return to the real-world option. Instead, a prompt appeared on the giant screen for all to see. Player Nina has spent 10,000 points to purchase the S-rank scenario, Happy Home, 30th floor, as her permanent private residence. Player Nina has chosen to remain in the game as a permanent resident. Back on the 30th floor of the apartment building, the sun was rising. It wasn't a bloody, terrifying sun anymore, but a warm, golden dawn that Nina had adjusted, using her newly acquired admin rights. The kitchen was filled with the smell of freshly baked pancakes. "Lily, sweetie, come and eat," Nina called out, setting the table. Lily, wearing her beautiful white princess dress, came running in, her face bright and clean, laughing as she slid into her chair. Vincent walked in a moment later, wearing his tailored suit, though he had a soft, pink apron tied around his waist. He walked up to Nina, leaned down, and planted a soft, gentle kiss on her cheek. "Good morning, my love," he whispered. "Good morning, honey," Nina smiled, adjusting his tie. "You know, I was thinking, since we have so much space now, maybe we should invite your parents over for Sunday dinner. Your mother said she wanted to teach me her recipe for curstew." Vincent chuckled, a warm, rich sound that echoed through the clean, bright apartment. He wrapped his arms around her waist, holding her close. "Whatever you wish, my dear," he said, his eyes filled with a deep, infinite love. "After all, this is our happy home." Outside, the infinite horror game continued to grind through players, but on the 30th floor of the House of Death, the tea was always hot, the floors were always clean, and the family was always whole.